Hey NBA fans, get subscribed to the channel because it's simple math. More subscribers equals more videos. We're going to cover the latest news, rumors, injury updates, trade buzz, and a whole lot more. So get subscribed today and turn on those notifications. Let's continue to grow the channel together. So go ahead, hit that big red button, and stay tuned for today's video. Basketball fans, I am your host, Harrison Graham. Go ahead and subscribe to Chat Sports at youtube.com/chatsportstv. Let's get into the latest NBA rumors and news, starting out in Brooklyn. And Mike D'Antoni, who's an assistant coach this year under Steve Nash, apparently is kind of leading the charge against the James Harden trade. Now, he's not anti-Harden guy. Obviously, him and Harden have a great relationship. He coached James in Houston for several years, but Bill Simmons has this belief that Brooklyn wants to just roll with what they got, and Mike D'Antoni believes they should keep their core together of course, Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. Obviously, the Rockets are getting trade calls about James Harden because he wants out of there, but after all the buzz, after everything he wanted to do to get out of Houston and get to Brooklyn, it looks like at this point that's pretty much on pause. That's pretty much not very likely for a Harden to Brooklyn trade to happen for a couple of reasons. One, D'Antoni doesn't want it, and two, the Nets aren't going to give up Kyrie or KD, and that's probably what the Rockets want in return for Harden. Now, James Harden is one of the premier superstars in the National Basketball Association, and he's off to a hell of a start again this year, even though he's, in my opinion, somewhat out of shape, but the guy just knows how to score. He can dish. He can do a little bit of everything. I would like to see if he can make it work with John Wall, but he clearly wants out of Houston, but it doesn't appear that the Brooklyn Nets are the team that will bring him on board. But we'll let you guys decide. Will the Nets trade for James Harden? Type Y for yes, type N for no. Go ahead and let me know down in the comment section. Will Brooklyn trade for James Harden before the NBA trade deadline? Y for yes or N for no. Now you look at Brooklyn recently, they got off to that scorching start after their first couple of games. Looked like the best team in the league, but obviously it's early. A little bit of mixed bag since they got blown out by the Hawks and then beat them the next next time out. Grizzlies they lost to the Hornets. Then they crushed Boston. So when they've looked good, Brooklyn's looked really good. When they've looked bad, they've kind of looked really bad. And expected, right? New coach, KD coming off injury, so is Kyrie. They got some kinks to work out as well. As far as Houston goes, while Harden's been great, overall, kind of the same deal. The Rockets have been up and down, and I think you've seen that from a lot of teams that most would expect to be premier basketball teams this year. There's been a lot of blowouts early in the NBA season, a lot of up and down play across the association, and I think a lot of that is due to a shortened offseason, a lot of new players on new teams. I think the play will clean up as the season goes along, but as far as James Harden goes, it's going to be very interesting to see where he ends up. I just don't think it'll be with the Brooklyn Nets. The latest surrounding the Boston Celtics, could Boston take a swing at James Harden? This has kind of been thrown out there a few times over the past several months, and apparently we know this. James Harden still wants out of Houston, but also the Celtics have at least, done a courtesy call. They're feeling out the situation like, hey, Houston, where are you guys at when it comes to James Harden, that type of thing. Now, I wouldn't say Danny Ainge and company are super interested at this point, but they're at least keeping their eyes open. They're not ruling out the possibility of taking a swing at James Harden. Now, the problem is that Houston is not going to consider a trade for Harden to Boston unless they get someone like a Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown. They're not going to get Tatum, and I personally don't think Jaylen Brown should be a part of a deal if I'm the Boston Celtics easier. He's much younger. He's having a great start to this season, coming off a breakout year last season. I'm not considering trading Jaylen Brown to the Houston Rockets for James Harden if I'm the Boston Celtics. That's just me. I'm not in charge, but I would not do that if I'm Danny Ainge, Brad Stevens, and company. Look at what Brown's done so far this year. Over 27 points per game. Small sample size, it's early, but you can tell this guy is on the rise. He's an all-star in the making, potentially a superstar in the making. I like Jaylen Brown a lot. I like James Harden too. He's a great player, but he's older. He's ball dominant. We saw this Celtics team with Kyrie, who's a similar player to Harden a few years ago. Things did not mesh well. It was not a good fit. If I'm Boston, I don't have a ton of interest in James Harden. Now, I'm typing my H in terms of who the better player is, but if I'm Boston, I'd rather keep Jaylen Brown, continue to grow this young core, I'm typing my B in that regard, but we'll let you guys decide. Pick a player. Type B for Jaylen Brown, type H for James Harden. Just consider some of those things, team chemistry, all of that good stuff when you cast your votes. You look at the Eastern Conference standings, the 76ers leading the way at 5-1. Indiana, Cleveland, Orlando, a little bit of a surprise, right? Early in the season, you're going to see weird things happen early on. You see it every year where one or two teams are like, oh my gosh, they're 7-2. They could be a breakout team this year. And then they lose like 25 out of their next 40 games, and they're in the draft lottery again. That could certainly happen to Cleveland or Orlando. 5 through 8 here as the Celtics bring up the rear at 3-3. Atlanta's been a nice team early on in the season. The Knicks have played better than expected. But again, we're 6 games in for most teams to a 72-game season. I think the Celtics will be fine. I think they should continue to roll with their young core and just take it day by day and improve throughout the season. Now, we've got NBA face coverings on sale for you guys at chatsports.com/NBA mask, including this Celtics 3-pack, of course, 1-packs, 2-packs, 4-packs as well for all 30 NBA teams. So go and check those out at chatsports.com/NBA mask. A lot of these up to 40, 50% off. Again, we got solo ones all the way up to 4-packs for all of your favorite teams. Warriors, Lakers, Mavs, Celtics, Knicks, whoever you want, chatsports.com/NBA mask. Check the comments, check the description. They'll be in there, and you can click on that link and shop today. You take a look at the Western Conference standings. I think the Phoenix Suns have been the most impressive team early on in the year. On opening night, they beat the Dallas Mavericks, and a lot of people were surprised by that result, but they haven't looked back since. 5-1 start. The Pelicans have been impressive. Clippers and Lakers kind of been up and down, but they're both sitting at 4-2. I think it'll take, especially the Lakers, a few games to kind of get their feet under them after winning the title this past season. Then you look 5 through 8. You got Utah, Portland, Sacramento, and Houston. But I will be very interested to see how the West plays out. Very, very competitive in the Western Conference this season, and obviously the Los Angeles Lakers looking to defend that title this year. Take a look surrounding the latest Lakers news and rumors. Some injury updates. We'll start with LeBron James. He is questionable to give it a go against Memphis here on Sunday night. Sprained his ankle against the Clippers. Has kind of been banged up since then. Frank Vogel says he will likely continue to play through injury, but you just got to wonder if it's worth at some point, if this is going to continue to linger, to maybe shut him down for 2 or 3 games. The Lakers are going to be fine. They're going to make the playoffs. If he misses a couple of games, not going to be a big deal. LeBron, you could say, has been hampered by this injury and the short rest this offseason, shooting just 45% from the field. That's a good number, but for him, not great. He's usually around 50%. Points are down. Rebounds and assists about where you would expect. He's usually in that 7 to 9 range in both of those. But I'll be curious to see how this plays out over the next few games if LeBron James continues to feel, lingered by that ankle injury. Remember, he's 36 now. He's coming off a title run with the Lakers. He didn't have that long of a break this offseason after winning that title in the bubble. So LeBron James, questionable against Memphis, probably going to play, but we'll keep an eye on this as this develops over the upcoming days and potentially weeks if this continues to linger. KCP also banged up. He sprained his ankle against the Spurs. X-rays did come back negative, so no fracture, no break, anything like that. Questionable against the Grizzlies. I think he'll probably play in this game as well. But sprained ankles are things, if you don't take a few days off, they're just going to hang around. They're not really going to go away. So luckily no high ankle sprain in either of these, but still something to monitor when it comes to LeBron and KCP, who are obviously 2 of your core 4 or 5 players on this Lakers roster. Now for Alex Caruso, he is out for the next couple of games, COVID protocols. It's not believed that he has tested positive for COVID-19, but the NBA has a pretty strict policy, so he will miss a couple of games here unless something changes. But Caruso, obviously one of your key guards coming off the bench, so he will be out the next 2 games for the Los Angeles Lakers, so keep that in mind as well as we kind of go through some updates here. And obviously KCP and Caruso, 2 of your key role players here. Caruso plays really well with that second unit, especially when LeBron plays with that second unit. KCP was a big part of this championship team last year and continues to be that role player, shooting over 55%. Alex Caruso just under him at 54%. The Lakers have done a really good job of creating a nice roster around AD and LeBron, and these 2 guys are certainly a big part of that. So what's more concerning in the near future? Obviously, these are not long-term issues injury-wise or COVID-wise with Caruso and KCP, but what's more concerning right now? Type KCP for Caldwell Pope, type AC for Alex Caruso. Which one of these guys being out, potentially, we don't know yet with KCP, gives you most pause? Let me know down in the comments section. Could Marvin Bagley be traded? We'll continue our NBA trade rumors here, and Bagley, things have just not gone great in Sacramento. Obviously, they should have drafted Luka Doncic in that 2018 draft. But now, after Sacramento's loss to Houston, you've got Marvin Bagley's dad going on Twitter saying, hey, time to trade my son. And you know how that goes when the parents get involved. It's not a very good situation. Here was the tweet. It was later deleted saying, at Sacramento Kings, please trade Marvin Bagley ASAP. Love Coach Bagley. So this will be something to monitor. You don't want to be in the same sentence as a LeVar Ball or something like that, but this kind of feels like one of those LeVar Ball situations where it's like, bro, your son's a professional basketball player. This isn't high school where there's politics involved. Stay out of it. But that's kind of where this has gone. And look, Bagley's certainly been a nice player since entering the league, but that draft with DeAndre Ayton and Luka Doncic, those two guys have obviously panned out to be better players. The Kings are in a weird spot where, you know, they're competitive. Can they win enough to be a legitimate playoff team? I wouldn't trade Marvin Bagley right now. I think he continues to improve and can be a key part of this team moving forward, but it's just not a good look when Pops is at home and he is tweeting at the Sacramento Kings that you need to trade his son. That is not a great look. Sacramento's next 5 games is they're off to a pretty good start this season. At Golden State, certainly a winnable game, as is the Bulls and Raptors games. Those teams have started out slow as well. Then you got Portland at home and Indiana at home. Those will be 2 good tests of both those teams. Should be pretty competitive in the NBA this season. Now, will the Sacramento Kings trade Marvin Bagley? Type T for trade, type K for keep. I'm typing my K for keep him. I think he will remain in Sacramento. He's cheap, he's productive, and you got to see if he's going to be a piece for the future if you are the Sacramento Kings. So I'm going to go ahead and type my K for keep. The latest Warriors news and rumors are around Andrew Wiggins, and honestly, this is a couple of things. One, this is mostly my idea, but two, this has been floated out there since they traded for Wiggins last year, and I'm bringing it back to the table because I think the Warriors could be pretty bad this year. They're 2-3. It's not like they're out of it by any means. No one's out of it 5-6 games into the season, but Golden State does not look like a good basketball team. Their plus-minus is like -14. They're losing by an average of like 25 points per game when they do lose their games. Then both their wins are very, very close. They can't defend. Steph Curry doesn't look like the same guy right now. They miss Klay Thompson. Maybe this team can make the playoffs, but it's definitely not a title-contending team without Klay this year. I'd be curious to see if Wiggins could fit in better elsewhere because it hasn't been great for him in Golden State since he came over last year. He's obviously not shooting the ball well this year. Very early. Don't want to overreact, but you just got to wonder if things continue down this path for Golden State where it becomes really obvious, let's say a month from now, that this team is not going to contend. Maybe trying to dump Wiggins in his contract in a trade makes the most sense. So, should Golden State trade Andrew Wiggins? Type 1 for yes, type 2 for no. I don't know if I'm there yet, but I do think it's worth bringing to the table, which is why I've mentioned it on today's show. So type 1 for yes, type 2 for no. Should Golden State trade Andrew Wiggins? I think these are some teams that could make sense. The Knicks and Hornets have some cap space, as does Atlanta. OKC does as well. I think they're a distant fourth on my list because they're not really trying to win this year. Why would they want to trade for Andrew Wiggins? But let's say the Knicks and the Hornets a month from now are, competing in the Eastern Conference to try and make the playoffs. Add a guy like Andrew Wiggins who can score a little bit, can be a secondary playmaker as well. I think that could be an option for one of those teams. But Golden State, they're just stuck in such a competitive Western Conference. I mean, look at the upcoming schedule. Portland, not easy. Now, all these games are at home, so you got to take advantage here. Sacramento at home, they're playing well this year. 2 Clippers games. Not going to be easy outcomes there either. Toronto off to a slow start, but we know they're very capable as well. Golden State is going to have to bring it every single night to compete in the Western Conference, and so far, they just don't look like a playoff team, which is why I believe Andrew Wiggins could be on the trading block. Now, will Golden State make the playoffs? Type P for playoffs, as in they will. Type M for that they will miss the playoffs. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Will Golden State make the playoffs this season. P for playoffs or M for miss. The latest Mavericks rumors are around a potential Aaron Gordon trade. Now, this is not the first time we have seen this floated on the internet in a couple of different angles. One, we've heard the Mavs linked to Gordon for about a couple of years now. And two, Aaron Gordon trade rumors never die. The internet is always trying to trade Aaron Gordon away from the Orlando Magic because he's a nice player, but he's not a great player. Orlando's got a ton of bigs and wings, and maybe at some point they will decide to ship him off to a different basketball team. Now, NBA analysis threw this trade out there, so let's go ahead and break it down for you. Aaron Gordon to the Mavs for James Johnson, Tyrell Terry, and a protected 2025 first-round pick. So basically an early second and a 2025 first because Tyrell Terry went early in the second round. So keep that in mind when you factor in this. Would you accept this trade? A for accept, D for decline? I wouldn't. First of all, James Johnson's playing well this year. I'm not ready to give up on Tyrell Terry after a handful of games. And I know it's protected in 4 or 5 years from now. I don't want to give up a first-round pick for Aaron Gordon. He's only averaging 12 points per game this year. So I'm typing D for decline if I'm the Dallas Mavericks. Don't panic just because Kristaps Porzingis hasn't played this year and has some injury concerns. Aaron Gordon's not fixing your lack of scoring problems at times that Dallas has shown early on this season. Now, the starting five could be interesting if a Gordon trade were to happen, and this would obviously be once Porzingis is healthy. This is just my projection. I think Dorian Finney-Smith would come off the bench, and you would have Luka, Tim Hardaway, Josh Richardson, Aaron Gordon, Kristaps Porzingis. Your bench would be pretty loaded as well, led by Dorian Finney-Smith and Maxi Kleber, Dwight Powell, and several others. Jalen Brunson, Trey Burke, of course. It's intriguing on paper, but I think James Johnson's a physical presence on this team. I think he's a guy that has a role with Dallas. And I'm not ready to punt on Tyrell Terry either. Aaron Gordon's a decent player, but he's not a guy I'm giving a first and pieces up for, which is what this trade proposal would be at the end of the day. I'm excited to see what happens once KP gets back. The Mavs have certainly not played that well early in the season, although they did beat the Heat recently. Hopefully they can kick it into gear soon. Got a good chance tonight against the Bulls, and then you head on the road again as well to face the Rockets and Nuggets before returning home to face the Orlando Magic and Aaron Gordon, of course, and the New Orleans Pelicans. Need to beat the Bulls, get to 3-3, and the Mavericks can get back on track, get their feet under them a little bit in the 2020-21 season.